Nittakanibo, Haribo, Haribo, Nittakanibo. Nittai Gaura Premanande, Srila Prabhupada ki, Ganta Chimad Bhagavatam ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaura Premanande. Om Gyantimandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Dina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manupistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upakadamayam Nadati Swavadantikam Namam Vishnupada Krishapista Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Govani Pachayane Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pasita Dishatarine Vanchakapa Tubasha Kipa Sinivevata Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pavanityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasadi Go Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from Canto 7, Chapter 9, verse 41, right? Yes? Okay. Evam svakama patitam bhavavaitaranyam. Evam svakama patitam bhavavaitaranyam. Anyonya janma maranashana bittabitam. Anyonyam yat janma maranashana bittabitam. Pashyanjanam svaparavigrara vairamaitam. Pashyanjanam svaparavigrara vairamaitam. Anteti paracharapi prihimudamadya. Anteti paracharapi prihimudamadya. Evam svakama patitam bhavamaitaranyam. Anyonya janma maranashana bittabitam. Pashyanjanam svaparavigrara vairamaitam. Anteti paracharapi prihimudamadya. Somebody chant. Ladies. Evam, in this way, Svakamapatitam, fallen because of the reactions of one's own material activities. Bhava, compared to the world of nations, birth, death, old age and disease. Vaitaranyam, in the river known as Vaitarani, which lies in front of the doorway of Yamaraj, the superintendent of death. Anya, one after another. Janma, birth. Marana, death. Asana, different types of eating. Bitam, being exceedingly afraid. Pasyan, seeing. Janam, the living entity. Sva, one's own. Para, of others. Vigraha, in the body. Vairamaitam, considering friendship and enmity. Hanta, alas. Iti, in this way. Parachara, O you who are on the other side of the river of death. Piprihi, kindly save us all from this dangerous condition. Mudham, we are all foolish, bereft of spiritual knowledge. Adya, today, because you are personally present here. Quite interesting how Prabhupada, explains the word for word translations, right? By making his little comments there, Translation. My dear Lord, you are always transcendentally situated on the other side of the river of death. But because of the reactions of our own activities, we are suffering on this side. Indeed, we have fallen into this river and are repeatedly suffering the pains of birth and death and eating horrible things. Now kindly look upon us, not only upon me, but also upon all others who are suffering, and by your causeless mercy and compassion, deliver us and maintain us. So this is Prahlad speaking, purport by Srila Prabhupada. Prahlad Maharaj, a pure Vaishnava, prays to the Lord not only for himself, but for all other suffering living entities. There are two classes of Vaishnavas, but the Bhajananandis and the Gosyanandis. But the Bhajananandis worship the Lord only for their own personal benefit. But the Gosyanandis try to elevate all others to Krishna consciousness so that they may be saved. Fools who cannot perceive repeated birth and death and the other miseries of materialistic life cannot be sure of what will happen to them in their next birth. Indeed, these foolish, materially contaminated rascals have manufactured an irresponsible way of life that does not consider the next life. They do not know that according to one's own activities, one receives a body selected from 8,400,000 species. These rascals have been described in Bhagavad Gita as duskritino mudha. Non-devotees, those who are not Krishna conscious, must engage in sinful activities, and therefore they are all mudhas, fools and rascals. They are such fools that they do not know what will happen to them in their next life. Although they see varieties of living creatures eating abominable things, pigs eating stool, crocodiles eating all kinds of flesh, and so on, they do not realize that they themselves, because of their practice of eating all kinds of nonsense in this life, will be destined to eat the most abominable things in their next life. A Vaishnava is always afraid of such an abominable life, and to free himself from such horrible conditions, he engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord. The Lord is compassionate to them, and therefore he appears for their benefit. Yada yada hidamasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adamasya tadatmanam shriyam aham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Bhagavad Gita 4:7. The Lord is always ready to help the fallen souls, but because they are fools and rascals, they do not take to Krishna consciousness and abide by the instructions of Krishna. Therefore, although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is personally the Supreme Lord Krishna, he comes as a devotee to preach the Krishna consciousness movement. Yadeka Tareka Krishna Upadesh. One must therefore become a sincere servant of Krishna. Amara Agya Guru Hana Tara Haidesh. My Bangla is not so good. One should become a guru and spread the Krishna consciousness all over the world, simply by preaching the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. So when I read this purport first, I of course noticed how many times Prabhupada is using the word fools and rascals in this purport, which is not even that long. So I was going through the text and counting. So he uses 5 times the word fools, 4 times the word rascals. And then 2 times he uses mudha, which is again fool. So Prabhupada, in this purport, he's really speaking so strongly. My God, So yesterday in one of our classes, we were talking about envy, how envy manifests. And we were saying when Prabhupada was heavily speaking, he could do like this because there is not even the slightest tinge of envy in his heart. But we can't speak like this. When we talk, when we preach like this, the few fools, rascals, there is some ego, some envy mixed in, and then our words will not be accepted so nicely, And Prabhupada was sometimes saying, I am an old man, I can speak like this, but you can't. So of course, it's not a question of age, so Prabhupada could speak like that not because he is an old man, but because he is free from envy and false ego. So of course Prabhupada's humility, he did not say that, so he just said, I am an old man, I can speak like that, but you can't. But in actuality, it is a question of envy and false ego, because as long as our heart is not completely freed from that, we have to be very, very careful when we speak strongly, because even if we say the perfectly right thing, the right instruction, but if there is envy and false ego mixed into it, that contaminates the best instruction, and then it will not have a purifying effect on the other person's heart. In fact, it will inflame their envy and their false ego, and then very easily we get caught in some ego battle there. We were talking about this in our false ego seminar. So now there is a few strong points which I thought I'll take up. So first of all, Prabhupada is saying, indeed, these foolish, materially contaminated rascals have manufactured an irresponsible way of life that does not consider the next life. So this is a very interesting point, that yes, modern worldview, leads to this irresponsible life, and it is manufactured in one sense by demoniac leaders there up in the top in the Western world. It is very clear in a culture where sense gratification is the all in all, that leads that life is manufactured in an irresponsible way, because if we promote sense gratification as the topmost goal in life, this leads to complete madness. This leads that the only interest is economic development and sense gratification. This leads to envy, to competition, to greed, and to propagating the consuming mentality. And that's exactly what's going on. And I think I even mentioned it already at the last Bhagavatam class, that now we are getting the bill. We are getting the reactions for all this consuming mentality, that we are drowning in our rubbish, we are drowning in our plastic. We have, ruined the whole planet Earth, the air, and so many species of life are extinct amongst the insects, birds, from all the pesticides, and I mean, my God, the damage this irresponsible way of life, which is manufactured in this Kali Yuga, has made irreparable damage, and because of this mentality, not considering the next life. I remember once, my parents, they're quite educated persons. My father's not on this planet anymore, but they're very educated and almost a little aristocratic people. So I remember once my mother had invited all different friends, and and I made some prasadam when I was visiting her in Germany, and and I was trying to give some little idea that at death not everything is finished. There is another existence after death. And I was really surprised how difficult it was for these educated, so-called educated people to accept. And the spontaneous reaction they had was, well, you believe in this, you believe in it, we believe in that, and actually nobody knows. And afterwards, after they left, I was trying to analyze why are people in such ignorance? And then I realized this ignorance makes it very comfortable to engage in sinful activities, because then people don't have to think. They don't have to accept responsibility for their action. They can just have this idea, well, at death everything is finished, so let's just enjoy to the maximum. Whatever feels good, do it. That's the motto in the Western world, But as soon as you accept the fact that there must be some further existence at the end of this life, then we have to take responsibility. Then we have to think, okay, well, what's happening in the next life? And maybe how can I have some influence in my next destiny? And maybe I am getting some reactions here from my activities. Or this thought process only comes up when we accept the fact that there is another existence after this life. But people don't want to hear this. They don't want to hear this. I mean, that experience I had there in my mother's home with these intellectual people made it very clear that people just don't want to hear about it. And I mean, we devotees are not the only ones who are, meanwhile, firmly convinced that there is a reality after this life. There is another existence. I mean, there is so many persons in this world now who accept this as a fact through all kinds of near-death experience and hypnosis, and people remember their previous lives and so, I mean, amongst a good portion of the population of this world, there is some understanding, but then some people just completely refuse to think about this. And they think it's just a question of belief, and you believe this, and we believe that, and others believe something else, and nobody knows. That's the answer they gave me. And they want to stay in this ignorance, just so they can engage in sense gratification and sinful activities. So it's quite interesting, how deep this ignorance is there, based on the desire of sense gratification. If that becomes the overall goal in life, then this is the natural path people are taking, and that's why in Kali Yuga, really, humanity is going to hell, it's Prabhupada is saying it so strongly, and fools and rascals, he's calling the leaders, I want to share with you one nice purport which came to my mind when I read this, how Prabhupada is saying, that the fools are manufacturing an irresponsible way of life. There is another purport in 7th canto, 14th chapter. This chapter is titled Ideal Family Life. There's so many powerful verses in purports, which is describing also the degraded stage of modern lifestyle. So please listen carefully. This is a little lengthy, well, not that long, but I find it just very powerful. It's Canto 7, chapter 14, verse 5. I don't know if you have the Hindi Bhagavatam there on your phone or something, then that would make it easier. 7:14:5, you have that Bhagavatam there? Really? Oh, okay. Wow, you are organized here. Okay. So I'm not reading the full purport. I'm starting where it says, in the human form of life, he should not endeavor for unnecessary necessities. I already love this expression, how Prabhupada puts things. The unnecessary necessities. I don't know if you're also translating this so nicely in Hindi. Like in other languages, it often gets lost. How Prabhupada chooses the words that they are in themselves, they're so contradictory, unnecessary necessities. It completely contradicts itself. But this is exactly what material life is based on. So, in the human form of life, he should not endeavor for unnecessary necessities, but should live a very simple life, just maintaining body and soul together. That is Krishna's recommendation, that we should actually live like this. Certainly, one requires some means of livelihood, and according to one's varna and ashram, this means of livelihood is prescribed in the Shastras. One should be satisfied with this. Therefore, instead of hankering for more and more money, a sincere devotee of the Lord tries to invent some ways of earning his livelihood. This is another very nice choice of words Prabhupada is having here. We are inventing some ways of earning our livelihood. It doesn't mean it has to be some super professional career or something. All right, if we have a career, okay, maybe no need to give it up. Although my humble self, I gave up my career as soon as I met the devotees. I had a medical professional career, and I haven't worked in that for a single day. I already gave it up before I met the devotees, actually, because I realized this is not what I'm supposed to do. So, but all right, we don't have to all give up our careers, but it's not, that this is the foremost thing in life, that, the material progress and. No, Prabhupada very nicely says, a sincere devotee of the Lord tries to invent some ways of earning his livelihood. He just comes up with some idea, how to earn enough money to keep body and soul together. That's actually, how a sincere devotee should live. And when he does so, Krishna helps him. I experienced that in my own 10 years of Grihastha life also. That if we come up with some idea, we invent some ways, then Krishna helps. Yes, no problem. Earning one's livelihood, therefore, is not a problem. The real problem is how to get free from the bondage of birth, death, and old age. Attaining this freedom and not inventing unnecessary necessities is the basic principle of Vedic civilization. So, my God, we are far away from this in the modern days of Kali Yuga. There we are doing exactly that. We are inventing unnecessary necessities. The whole propaganda is there that we need so many things to be happy, which is complete nonsense. This is what Prabhupada is saying here, that we are just, manufacturing an irresponsible way of life, by inventing unnecessary necessities. This is exactly what's going on. One should be satisfied with whatever means of life comes automatically. Meaning by doing one's duty, not just sitting, okay, automatically, whatever comes. No, that's not what Prabhupada is talking here. He's saying by performing our duties, whatever comes automatically by performing the duties, The modern materialistic civilization is just the opposite of the ideal civilization. Every day, the so-called leaders of modern society invent something contributing to a cumbersome way of life that implicates people more and more in the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. Very powerful. I mean, it's one of my favorite purports there, and I find this connects very nicely to his, comment that we are, manufacture an irresponsible way of life. This is how it is taking place, by inventing so many unnecessary necessities. Yeah, I remember in my Grihastha life, just 3 months after I got married, we went to former Soviet Union and we started preaching there, because my former husband, his parents came from that part of the world and he spoke the local language, and when he was a brahmachari he always wanted to go and preach there. So then after we got married, 3 months after, we went there and we started a temple there. And I had joined in Australia, so I had lived for 4 years in Australia, so I was used to this lifestyle of unnecessary necessities, So, and then I came to former Soviet Union, communist system. So there were no unnecessary necessities in that system. I mean, my God, in those days, of course, this is 30 years ago, so now the communist system has fallen apart, it is not there anymore. But in those days, this was 1989. This was just when the communist system gradually fell apart. So, and I was just so amazed. I was coming to a city with 2 million people. No, 1 million people, of course, here for India, this is very small city, but 1 million people for Europe, this is quite a big city. And I was so amazed how such a big city can exist on so few shops. There was only a few shops there, and you didn't even know what they were selling there. You had to look, okay, what can I get here? And I remember there was this camera shop, and there was this big showcase, and there was one old camera there, and that was it. And a few black and white films which you had to wind up there by hand and all this, so really old-fashioned stuff, and I was just amazed. I was so impressed, and I was thinking, my God, how is it possible a whole city of 1 million people can quite nicely function, with so little things to buy? That was the good thing actually in the communist system, that there were no unnecessary necessities, did not exist. And the real basic necessities, they were dirt cheap, completely cheap. So the system actually was very nice for the devotees, and that's why we immediately recognized this. Wow, here to live as a grihastha is pretty easy, you're not getting caught up in the whole rat race of having to work like an ass and earn money and so all basic things were really cheap, and unnecessary necessities were not available, luxuries were not available. And as a devotee, we should not be interested in that anyway. So for us, it was paradise. Yeah, so, but this is the point. I mean, we can almost say in these modern days, a nation is categorized on that criteria, how expert they are in producing unnecessary necessities, then the country is advanced, right? The more expert people are in producing unnecessary necessities, then country is very advanced. But country like Bangladesh, tomorrow I'm flying to Bangladesh, country like Bangladesh, they're not so expert in producing unnecessary necessities. They are considered, completely underdeveloped and. So that's the main criteria in these modern days. And I dare say, let's see how Kali Yuga continues. Hopefully I will not see it anymore. I have hopes. I have no desires to come back here to, in this material world to see how Kali Yuga advances, but we never know. But I dare say there may come a time when countries like Bangladesh are the countries number one. When the whole economic system collapses, the whole banking system, money system, this is all so artificial. So who knows, maybe the day will come when this whole consuming system is just going to collapse, And then countries like Bangladesh, they will be the number one because they know how to survive. They're the villages. I've traveled to all kinds of places there, my God. Areas where there's no road even going, where you have to walk the last 2 kilometers. So they're people, they are self-sufficient. They just produce in their villages what they need. And they hardly even get anything from Dhaka or something, They're quite self-sufficient. And spending so much time there, I realized, my God, this is actually how civilized human beings are meant to live, actually. Very simple, keeping body and soul together, and the main focus should be on developing our relationship with Krishna. And you see, when you go to these simple villages, people have so much time. Yes, they have so much time. Unfortunately, they don't always use it for chanting Hare Krishna, but they're just sitting and, in tamaguna, not doing anything and just talking nonsense or something. That's the other unfortunate thing. But we are in this illusion, that we think all this modern technology and economic development, this will save time. But no, it's the other way around. It actually eats up all our time. In simple life, that saves time. And we have so much more peace of mind. The mind is not so disturbed with all kinds of issues and calamities and problems and. So the modern way of life is really just so so unnatural and completely mad, actually, And yes, I got these insights really through the time I spent in Bangladesh, because some years ago I spent there 3-4 months per year, and then when I was flying back from Bangladesh to Germany, this was a whole culture shock for me, that I thought, my God, what are the people doing here, just running around like mad and just completely missing the whole goal of life, Yes. So, but you only get really these deeper insights when we actually spend some time away from this crazy lifestyle, Yes. Otherwise, we don't really get these realizations so easily. So time is going, and of course I had so many more points here, but maybe let me refer to one other thing where Prabhupada says, where is it, that a devotee is fearful. Let me see, where was it? Where was it? Anyway, somewhere here in the purport. Here. A Vaishnava is always afraid of such an abominable life. And to free himself from such horrible conditions, he engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord. So, Vaishnava is always afraid. This is also quite a deep point, which Prabhupada explains in one purport in the 10th canto, actually. And he refers to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And he says that actually, let me see, where do I have it in my little verse book here, where he refers to Devaki being fearful of Kamsa, and how her 6 children represent Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moha, Mada, Matsaya, lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and envy. And through her fear of Kamsa, Devaki's heart gets purified. And her 6 sons, 6 children which were killed, they represent these 6 anathas. So, and only then her heart was prepared to give birth to Balaram and to Krishna, representing bhakti. So, and Prabhupada starts this whole, purport, that's 10th canto, 2nd chapter, verse 8, but we won't go through the whole thing. But, Prabhupada starts there by saying, thus, situated in devotional service, a devotee, although in the material world, is not in the material world. Yet a devotee always fears, because I'm associated with the material world, so many contaminations affect me. So a devotee should always actually be fearful of Maya. That protects us from Maya. There was also a little story where Prabhupada said, the difference between you devotees and me is that I am always fearful of Maya, but you are not. Yes. So even Prabhupada, and of course maybe he's saying that to instruct us, but ultimately that's a sign of advancement, that we realize my insignificant and vulnerable position. I'm so tiny, small. Maya is so strong. At any time, Maya can just wash me away. So the more we advance, the more we become free from false ego, and the more we realize I'm actually hopelessly dependent on Guru and Krishna and the Vaishnavas. And therefore we have to be alert in fear. Yeah, actually, that's what he says after what I just read. Prabhupada continues, therefore he is always alert in fear, which gradually diminishes material association. So this being alert in fear, that purifies us, and that also protects us from the influences which we are surrounded by. We are heavily surrounded by all kinds of materialistic propaganda, and even here in India, even though Ujjain of course is a little remote here from so many other bigger cities in India where that materialistic propaganda is so much stronger, but still. So that's why devotee is alert in fear. We should never feel safe. Oh yes, I'm a devotee, I'm chanting Hare Krishna, nothing can touch me. No. Then Maya will already rub her hands and say, we're gonna get him, So, but devotee is always alert in fear. Yes, that is actually a sign of advancement, when we are alert in fear. Yeah. And of course, Prabhupada ends the purport, by making this point that yes, one should preach, one should dedicate one's life in preaching, and he also starts the purport like that by pointing out to Prahlad Maharaj, yes, he is not only praying for himself, but actually Prahlad Maharaj's main interest is, that the fallen souls are delivered, not for himself, And that, let me just, because I looked up so many nice quotes about preaching and all that, but time is running. So, but let me just share this one little thing, because Prabhupada is also talking about Bhajananandis and Gosyanandis, this preaching spirit, that is so much higher, really having that compassion for the fallen conditioned souls and being willing to sacrifice our personal comfort and our personal interest and to sacrifice our very life, for the upliftment of others. And that leads us to this nice quality of paradukha dukhi, that this is the Vaishnav quality, paradukha dukhi, which means that actually devotee is not so much in distress about his own situation, but what gives a devotee pain is to see others suffering in ignorance. And Prabhupada himself, really in a wonderful way, he demonstrated this quality. There was this nice little incident where Prabhupada, as we may know, most mornings he was going out for morning walk. This was in Australia, in Melbourne. And Prabhupada was early morning, he was driving back to the temple in the car, 6 o'clock in the morning. And some of his disciples were sitting with him in the car. And of course, in big cities like Melbourne, already at 6 o'clock in the morning, everybody's rushing to work, there's already traffic and people running and So, and one devotee, Chittahari Prabhu is his name, Chittahari Das, he's a Prabhupada disciple. He was with Prabhupada in the car. Yes, you also have a Chittahari. It wasn't that one. So he was with Prabhupada in the car. And he was thinking, he didn't even say it, he was thinking to himself, looking out the car window, he was thinking, look at all these mudhas running to work. Thank God, I am with Prabhupada, and with the greatest devotee, and thank God I'm not like them, running to work like some mudha there, connecting with the purport here where Prabhupada talks about the foods and rascals. So, but, Chittahari Das, he was not so highly elevated. He had some little arrogance there in his heart, thinking himself to be so much better. Look at these mudhas. But he didn't even say anything. He only thought it. But almost mysteriously, Prabhupada could pick up on that. And he was looking out the other window. And then with a very, with almost a choked voice, he was saying, yes, how can we save them? That was Prabhupada's mood of paradukha dukhi. He was pained seeing all these people running to work, Yes. And then Chittahari Das, he could feel, Prabhupada is in a completely different mood here, and he turned to Prabhupada and he saw that actually Prabhupada had tears coming, from his eyes, looking at the fools and mudhas there running to work. That was Prabhupada's mood, full of compassion, paradukha dukhi, Yes. So, we can assess ourselves a little bit, how much have we developed that paradukha dukhi mood, that compassion, when we go out here in Ujjain, in the city, Do we feel pain in our heart, seeing all these people in ignorance, being all bewildered by Kali Puja and Durga Puja, and they think this is the overall goal in life? Do we feel compassion? Do we feel some pain? Do we have that thought? How can we save them? Or do we think, oh, thank God, I'm in the comfortable temple here and I don't have to go out and work like an ass. Is that our mood, or is our heart actually full of pain? Yes. Anyway, so time is up. I don't know, shall we just finish, or shall we ask for a question? I don't know, you decide, please. If you feel that we should end, then no problem. Or if you feel that we should ask for one question. Come on, Prabhuji, who is in charge here? Tell me what to do, please. Shall I finish or shall I continue? Well, then I assume that I should finish and you're too cultured to tell me. All right, well, I am leaving this afternoon, so I want to thank you very much for allowing me to visit, and I really enjoyed my time here, and I hope I didn't commit too many offenses knowingly and unknowingly, so if I did so, then kindly forgive me. But yes, I enjoyed trying to share different insights with you all, and I had a wonderful time, and I hope you allow me to come back again in the future. And one more time, if there's anybody who has not checked out this book yet and would like to have a copy, so this is your last chance to get one. So please come up and let me know if you want a copy of this book. And also 4 o'clock we have our ladies meeting, so I hope the ladies will come for that. Okay, thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhaktavinda ki, Gaura Premanandi. Hare Krishna.
Her Grace Devaki Mataji ki. Thank you very much, Mataji, for your